except that's not what this video is about at all. I would never make a video like that because I know what this channel is about, and I know especially what it's not about. See, knowing who you are is almost more about knowing who you are not. And I'm not an apologist. And this is not to offend any apologists out there, because there are really, really, really good ones. In fact, how I was introduced to the faith was by way of many great apologists: Tim Staples, Patrick Madrid, my friend Tim Gordon, Brian Holdsworth, etc. There's a whole list of really amazing apologists out there that are doing amazing work. What I'm more so talking about is this tendency toward, tendency for new converts or reverts to either overconsume apologetics content or to become apologists themselves. Really staying on, and when I'm talking about the converts that consume this content, staying on baby food and learning all of this, the history of the faith and the apologetics and the argumentation, but none of the actual practice. Okay. One thing I love about Catholicism is that it's both endlessly deep in terms of staunch intellectuality and philosophy, but it also can be a peasant faith as well. And what I see really lacking, and I haven't been around Catholicism all that long, I've been immersed in this world for the last year and a half or so, and this is something that I did, so that I'm speaking from personal experience, I'm not just trying to drop the hammer down on dudes, is that there's this tendency toward wanting to learn all the apologetics, wanting to consume all this historical knowledge of the faith, which is good. But there's two things with this. Number one, there really is a breeding ground for pride for so many men, it's particularly young men, have all this fervor, all this zeal for the faith. They consume all these apologetics. And if they don't become apologists themselves, which is insane, given that most of them have been Catholics for less than a year or what have you, there's this tendency toward pride and forgetting that this is a practice, the practice of faith, the practice of piety, the practice of religion, the sub-virtue of justice, and actually the active everyday conversion of one's heart. And I think a lot of this apologetics content distracts men away from the actual practice of their faith. And on the other side, you have this whole slew of converts that are becoming apologists. Church fathers that Protestants fear most, or sola scriptura debunked, or whatever. The debunking, everybody's debunking everything. We don't need more debunking content, okay? We don't. We absolutely don't. And I'm not saying that my channel does anything better or more virtuous or whatever. I just know what my channel isn't. I'm trying to help guys. I'm trying to help guys in the areas of virtue, physical fitness, building fortitude, building temperance, sharing my story, and really getting guys to do things that are arduous, right? Physically, compelling them to go to confession. It's really kind of like basic stuff, because I'm going to be honest. I'm not the smartest guy in the world when it comes to this stuff. And I'm okay with that. I consume the faith. I would say there's a semblance of intellectuality that I have and appreciation for the faith that I have in these ways. There's a lot of stuff that I'm consuming and doing and reading, so I become more read up, if you will. But my experience at the beginning as like a revert coming back into it is that I overconsumed this stuff, and what happened? I became kind of prideful. I started to think in ways that weren't exactly holy. And so I look at the social media landscape and I see all of this debunking content, and it's not edifying. The tendency is, and I see this a lot because I made the video last week, Novus Ordo Fatigue, that kind of popped off for a small channel like mine. Tons of comments, tons of new subscribers, tons of views, etc. And I can see, and so this is why I sympathize, I can see how guys fall victim to the algorithm. This kind of content gets clicks. When I do a lot of content on virtue, it gets a lot of great engagement. It's great for business. It's great for helping men out, but it doesn't get a lot of views and engagement and traffic. And so for those people that are running their lives and their businesses off of YouTube, I can see how this would be challenging. However, there is a real tendency to enter into, not tendency, but there is a danger of entering into spiritually dangerous territory when it comes to this stuff. Especially when you're coming into the faith as a convert or as a revert, you've got all this fervor, all this zeal, and you enter straight into apologetics, and you're kind of out of your depth. And you're either over-consuming the content or you're over-creating this type of clickbait BS content that's really not doing anything for anybody. There's a lot of amazing apologists. I named some at the beginning here. There's also, Joel Heschmeyer, William Albrecht, Sam Shamoon. There's a long list of guys that do this incredibly well. Leave this to the masters. Leave this to the dudes that have studied this for years, that are well read, well studied. But number one, they're well practiced. I know some of these guys personally, and they have devoted interior lives where a lot of this stuff is just clickbait nonsense. And I think it just adds to the overconsumption of this type of content that's not edifying. We don't need to continue to argue sola scriptura and Protestantism and talking about the church fathers that Protestants fear or what have you. That's nonsense. I kind of equate it to the people that overconsume and overcreate this content. If I'm looking at, the lifting, the weightlifting world, right? That's the world that I know that very, very well because I've owned a business for 10 plus years in the fitness realm. I owned a gym for many years, and I've been a meathead for a long time. Is that there's this whole slew of scientific weightlifters. Okay, they're scientific weightlifters. They've got their lab coats on. They're looking at all the studies, all the whatever meta-analysis on training regime or nutrition, etc. And what they're doing is they're trying to outsmart a work ethic problem. So much of these guys are looking for novel ideas, novel nutritional ideas or training ideas that they're trying to circumvent the work ethic required to build strength and build a physique. And I equate this to the guy that is trying to out-educate the lack of practice in his faith. Okay, so the scientific weightlifters are trying to circumvent work ethic. They're trying to outsmart hard work. Listen, you can't out science or out volume an intensity problem. That's in the gym. You can't out educate or out apologetic, whatever the word is, a lack of piety, a piety problem, a lack of an interior life. And I'm not pretending that my interior life is way more robust than these men. I'm just saying we ought to kind of like audit ourselves. The confessional should be filled with guys that are tweeting some of these things and making some of these videos and all this clickbait nonsense. And like look inward. Let's not forget why we become Catholic. Because it's the true, the good, the beautiful. It's the fullness of truth. We're in the bosom of the bride of Christ himself. And instead of trying to further our depth in our relationship and our communion with Christ, instead we're trying to run businesses, which is totally, totally fine. But let's not forget the order of priority. Okay. And so for the young men, young women out there, you don't need more debunking content. You need more practice in your interior life. You need to go to confession more often. You need to develop a devotional life where you're praying every single day, where your interior life is causing interior changes. You're becoming sanctified by your devotion, growing in love with Jesus Christ, going to mass, practicing your faith versus just learning about your faith. And in a lot of ways, like learning about your faith can really deepen, the practice of your faith. I've experienced this too. But we need to not forget that the number one thing is the practice of our faith, okay? And I'm a fairly new revert as well. I was a cradle Catholic that fell away, so I know some things. Christ has changed my life. The Blessed Mother's intercession has changed my life in profound ways, in more ways than one. And I've done a bunch of videos on this already, and I'll continue to bang on that drum because it's true. Praise be to God, how much change has happened in my life as a result of returning to the sacraments, returning to the church, and then my family following suit. But that has come from not like the learning of my faith, which caused a lot of pride for me. Maybe other guys can wield this a little bit better. Maybe this doesn't cause pride in every single person, but it's certainly dangerous territory. But it's the practice of my faith. It's, again, going to confession, staying in a state of grace, partaking in communion, cultivating a devotional life, bringing Christ into every area of my life, whether it be lifting weights or my work or being with my family, everything. These are the things that we ought to be focused on more instead of just learning about debunking certain arguments. You don't need to debunk anybody. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't serve you. And so stop consuming baby food on YouTube. You want to learn something? Go enroll in a class. Learn about the Summa with an actual professor. Okay, do something. Practice your faith. Get involved with your parish. Get involved with your church instead of just consuming the debunking content. Right? Just like the scientific weightlifters cannot out science an intensity and work ethic problem, you can't out educate or apologetic a lack of practice. And so what I think is that, not being a super smart guy myself, what mine goes to is, a peasant faith is pure and it's beautiful. That I'd rather be the illiterate deaf monk that practices his faith, that loves Jesus Christ, that knows nothing about it, versus the guy that's puffed up with all this head knowledge, but there's no heart change. No heart change. Less debunking content, consumption and creation of it, and more practice of our faith. That's where the change is going to come from, and better for our souls. That's all I wanted to say. And as an aside, men looking for one-to-one coaching, fitness coaching, I'll leave the link below. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And welcome to all the new subscribers and everybody. This has been it's been fun, and I'm not going to stop. Glory to Jesus Christ. Stop debunking, and God bless you.